Okay, it's 8 a.m. at Osborne Mountain Overlook, and I'm the only one here for the hike. That's awesome. You're all practicing your social distancing skills. So I'll be taking some videos here so that I can share what I find on the trail with you. So let's start by taking a look around. It's a beautiful morning out here. All right, so that's where the trail is going to start. We'll walk down the meadow here, and then we'll see what we can find up there in the woods. All right, so I already found something interesting here. Not really flowers yet, but we've got some evidence of animals being out here. There's some deer poop, I'm guessing. There's lots of deer around here in this area. And then there's actually a dead mole there. So posting dead animals on iNaturalist, I guess, is fine. So we'll take a picture of that one and post it on there. Okay, so here we are where the trail heads into the woods. And most of the trees here look to be eastern white pine. So this is probably an area that was logged some time ago, and pines are one of the first trees to colonize those areas. So we see a lot of those growing here. Quite a bit of evidence here of recent storms. Some of these old pines will be brought down by ice storms or wind storms. So we see a lot of dead wood on the ground. And of course there's little growths of pine seedlings, or saplings at this stage, trying to grow up into those light gaps. Oh, and a really nice, thick poison ivy vine. Look at this. So yeah, be careful which trees you touch around here. There's lots of poison ivy in the area. Hairy vine, no friend of mine. That vine is probably as thick as my arm. It's huge. Lots of lichens and mosses on these fallen logs. So if you're interested in identifying those, you can probably spend half an hour just photographing all the different species of mosses and lichens on this. Nice boulders along the way with lots of mosses. Again, if you're interested in identifying mosses, there's a lot of them out here. Lots of mossy trees along this trail. This tree actually has something growing on it that's not a moss. You see those plants that are sticking out from the bark a little bit more? Those are actually leafy liverworts. They're not mosses. So there's some interesting things to find out here. You might want to bring a hand lens to look at these guys a little bit more closely. They're quite interesting. Okay, there's some ferns around here. Here we have Christmas fern, which is one of our evergreen or wintergreen ferns. And it's usually pretty easy to recognize. The top part of the fronds is where we have fertile leaflets. Sometimes you still see the sporangia on there. And then the lower parts, the leaflets are just there for photosynthesis. So here we have another wintergreen plant. Those leaves are rattlesnake plantains. They're actually an orchid. They bloom in June, but they keep their leaves through the winter. And they have that interesting pattern on them. I guess that's why they call them rattlesnake plantain, because the pattern on the leaf veins resembles snakeskin. So here we have a little holly sapling. Looks like American holly. There's bunches of them around here. This is still a very young plant. So just want to take a moment to give a shout out to Sheldon and his trail crew for removing fallen trees from the trail. I bet this was a job. The trail runs parallel to the Blue Ridge Parkway, so often you can see the road actually through the trees. So as you walk along the trail, the forest changes. So we're now getting into an area where there's more hardwoods. Lots of leaves on the ground. If you look at these trees, these are hardwood trees. A couple of pines still in between them. But the change in forest canopy should also then lead to a change to the flowers we see on the floor. All right, so here we've got our first buds on this hike. So let me zoom in a little bit. See those purple buds there? That's the foliage. That's golden ragwort. So once these buds open, they will actually open into yellow flowers. Okay, so here we've got a plant leafing out already. Unfortunately, this is not the kind of plant we want to see. This is actually Multiflora rose, one of the Asian invasives that you find in these forests. So here we have a nice opening. This is where a couple of years ago, I think, landslide downed some of the trees. So we get an opening in the trees, a light gap for young plants to grow up. And of course, for us to get a nice view of the landscape out there. So that's 421, the road down there. So here we have an area where there's actually water trickling down. We call that a seep. And those seepage areas are usually really good for wildflowers. So let's see if we can find some seedlings. So yeah, this area is full of seedlings already. These look like they're jewelweed seedlings. Yeah, that's jewelweed. And there's lots of them where it's wet here. They love the wet areas. Of course, mosses and all sorts of things already growing up here. So this should be an interesting area to watch as we go further into spring and summer. There will probably be lots of things growing here right along this wet area. As you're hiking at this time of the year, watch for those wintergreen plants. Here's another one. That's another orchid right there. Those leaves are up during the winter and then they disappear, and the orchid actually flowers in the summer. So here we have another area where apparently something downed the trees. We get a big light gap. So we'll probably see lots of things growing here in the summer. Lots of space for wildflowers to grow up. So yeah, plenty of greenery already coming up along this trail. No obvious flowers yet, but they're coming. But here's another thing I noticed along this trail. There's lots of these snail shells. So if you walk along here, keep an eye out for those. I have no idea what they are. I'm not an expert on snails, but there's plenty of them and they're pretty big. Okay, so here we have another plant leafing out that we don't necessarily want to see. This is Japanese barberry. It's another one of those invasive plants in these forests. All right, so I'm thrilled to report that we do have our first spring bloomers. We have the first bloodroot in bloom right here along the trail. Look at that. Very characteristic leaf. And then they have these white flowers. And they are one of the earliest bloomers in this area. And they usually don't last very long. So if you want to see the bloodroots in bloom, you should be going out right now, this weekend. Of course, these early spring bloomers are not just here because they like to be here. They want to be pollinated. There's a pollinator party going on in this bloodroot flower. These look to be some beetles. No idea what they are, but maybe someone on iNaturalist will know. All right, so here we are at the northern end of the trail. It comes out right where the bridge across 421 is. So that's the entrance to the parkway here. There's the bridge over there. So if you want to start from the northern end, this is probably where you want to park your car. And then look for the Mountains to Sea Trail. So that's the MST. Look for those trail markers. That's where the trail starts. And somebody left their shoes there. How about that? So it took me a little over an hour to walk the trail up to here. I'm going to head back and take some pictures. So it will probably take me at least twice as much time to get back to the car, because I tend to take a lot of pictures. But I like to walk the trail first to scout out what's out there and then go back and take pictures for iNaturalist. All right, so here we are at the end of our hike. So the verdict is spring is here. Yes, we have the first wildflowers. So if you want to see them, get out there and look for the bloodroots. I'm pretty sure Hepatica will be out in some places. And then we'll check again next week.